Redman Group Live at 21 Summit 2022 of Orlando, Florida, celebrating 16 years of 21 Studios and 21 Convention Live events. This episode, the final episode of 21 Summit 2022, the final show of our entire event. It's called The State of Women. Earlier today, we did one on the state of masculinity, basically the state of men in America and throughout the West. And now we're going to talk about the state of women, the state of femininity. We actually have an entire convention that kind of inspired this episode called the 22 Convention to make women great again. And in many ways, that's the purpose of this episode, to help make women great again, make women the greatest they have ever been. So before we get further into the episode, I want to kind of go down the panel, get a basic introduction for the people here and the people on the video years from now. Who are you and what are you about? What are you about?
My name is Zan Perion. I'm Canadian. And I wrote a book called The Alabaster Girl. And I'm here on this panel, I believe, because I really love women and I have my whole life.
My name is Jeff Younger. I'm from the great state of Texas. I'm a father of two boys, and I've been fighting to stop one of my sons from being transitioned to a girl by the family courts.
I'm Anthony Johnson, Anthony the Dream Johnson. I'm the founder of 21 Summit, 21 Studios, 21 Convention, the Patriarch Convention, 22 Convention, the Redman Group, and 10,000 other things on the internet or in real life sometimes. I love what I do. I think women are pretty awesome, pretty dope. I have a girlfriend, a couple sisters, love women a lot. And I'm going to make them all great again by the millions.
My name is Alexander Juan Antonio Cortez, popularly known as AJAC online. I'm a husband, father, personal trainer, writer. And I've become known for many things in this man's sphere that we have, relative to self-improvement. But I've always gotten along well with the opposite sex, with women. So hopefully we can have a constructive conversation.
My name is Jennifer Molesky. I am a wife and mother and hobbyist YouTuber, and I like women too. I guess it depends on the individual woman, though. I don't like all of them, but I want to support you in making women great yet again.
A woman.
What's that?
I said a woman.
A woman.
Get a woman of that.
Oh, Jesus. All right, that's great. It's very clever.
That's great.
So I want to start with AJ, Mr. Ajax here,
Okay.
Alexander Cortez. AJ, even before Make Women Great Again, you were known for writing tweets that were very provocative and entertaining and educational for women, including how to be a beautiful woman.
Yes.
And about 50 million women, as I understand it, loved this tweet thread. Talk to me about how to be a beautiful woman and what happened when you wrote that tweet that reached so many millions of lovely women.
So that was an interesting experience. So the original tweet was basically 12 steps how to be a beautiful woman. You want to be fit, thin, pretty, attractive, feminine, like men, listen to men, dress well, be hygienic, cook, clean, be graceful. I think something along those lines. I can't remember all of them. And funny enough, I stole that tweet from somebody else I forget who it was, but they wrote a list of 12 things women don't need to be. And I found it preposterous. And I just riffed it into the opposite direction. 12 things women need to be beautiful. And it blew up. It got 100 million impressions. It got 14,000 comments on it. Yeah. And what was fascinating to me was that this is a very generic list. You're basically describing a basic female, XX chromosome. And it caused a firestorm. And I got death threats. I got girls telling me that I should go kill myself, castrate myself. You're an incel. Women hate you.
Baby dick.
You should fucking die. Yeah, it's always the same insults. And I also had a bunch of women sending me pictures asking me to rate them of, am I beautiful? Like, do you think I'm beautiful? Am I an 8? Am I a 9? Am I a 7? Like, are you single? So it was raising mixed reactions. But like, what was it a signal of, I guess, on like a meta level? Is that gender polarity has been dissolved the past decade. We're not allowed to differentiate anymore between the opposite sex. We can't even say opposite sex anymore. Are there sexes? Apparently there's 96 genders, 500 genders. We don't know. You can be volley, poly, furry, sexual, cat sexual, masculine, presenting, female. I even know. It's a word salad. It's this utter confusion. And it's affected the dating market. It's affected the fuck rate. Men and women aren't fucking anymore. If you look at statistics, if you actually look at statistics, so we often talk about like the rise of incels, right? Like there's a whole segment of men, somewhere around 24% of the population. I'm not bullshitting this, but around 24% of men are no longer having sex under the age of around like 40. So young guys, ages 20 to 40, 1 in 4 of them are not having sex. You know, it's the big deal, right? It's like, Jesus, we have all this incel problem. Look at women's statistics. About 18, 19, 20% of women are no longer having sex. We have the rise of fem cells now. So we have roughly 1.4 to 1.5% of the population, 25% of the population, who are just, they're not fucking, they're not going to reproduce. We have a declining birth rate. So we can talk about certainly the segment of the population that are these women who are fucking whores, only sluts, all these things, and the giga chads, the guys who are just laying down pipe and they're fucking everybody. But that's in reality, it's a small segment. That's not 60% of the population. That's maybe 5-10%. The majority of the population, men, women, they're just not interacting with each other. They don't know how to anymore. A woman can't even be beautiful because, you know, by my own list, if you're to be thin, pretty, graceful, that's not what a woman is. A woman is, I don't know, it's something else, right? This anger, rage, confusion. Men don't know how to be men. So that list, what made an impact, it made me realize that not even the dating market, like the sexual marketplace, the fuck it rate marketplace, it's fucked. It needs to change. Hopefully I answered the question, right? Was that the question?
Yeah.
I actually don't know what the question
you
was.
nailed it.
Okay.
In some way, somehow, it was awesome. I was enjoying this
All right,
a
I'll
whole
take
lot. Yeah. Jeff, I want to move to you. You're quite a bit older than I think, except you're and Zan are about the same age. So maybe we can have this for both of you.
Okay.
The others over here were
You're
quite a
young,
bit
sir.
younger. What have you two observed about the fuck marketplace, as AJ put it, or the sexual marketplace? What have you seen change in the West, in America, and in Canada over your lifetime since you were young? When I'm sure it was a lot different when you were in high school, 15, 16 years old,
Mhm.
compared to what we see now, where we see prostitution on the internet being normalized for millions of women and sugar baby lifestyles and college campuses. UCF in Orlando is a sugar baby capital of the world, if you didn't know that. So right down the street.
Wow.
So what have you seen, first Jeff and then Zan, change in the sexual marketplace during your lifetime?
The most obvious symptom was a complete decline of modesty, right? You know, I even go into churches now and I'm looking at butt creases on women. The skirts are so short and there's just a complete decline in female modesty. You know, if I was asked what an attractive woman is, it would be a woman who's chaste and obedient. That's an attractive woman. That's a woman that will be attractive to many men, and many men will be willing to put his protection over a chaste and obedient woman. And I just ask you, where on earth will you find a chaste and obedient woman today? It's very difficult to find. Both the chastity has declined, right? It's almost non-existent, which is why we have your slogan, "Make women virgins again."
Yes.
Women are in a profound state of disobedience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for example, sassy is a compliment that women give one another, but sassy means impudent and rude. That's become a virtue. So what's happened, I think, to really precipitate the decline in people who don't, is they simply find people who are not in any way attractive as a man to provide protection for. And so young men just started checking out. And what happened was 20% of the men just started getting all the pussy. And 80% of the men, look at any college campus, that's how it works, right? And it has nothing to do with men protecting women or helping women or being part of women's lives. It's purely a transactional form of prostitution. And that's become the norm.
Zan, you focus a lot more on beauty, so I'm curious about this from your perspective, that perspective and any other you'd like to provide. You're 58 now?
58,
So
yeah.
you've seen a lot in your lifetime in this.
No, we have the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, getting up there.
Have you seen beauty decline in women in your lifetime?
You know, I really have been thinking about this a lot. What's changed in 20 years? You know, because I've been doing this a lot, been in a lot of stages, and what has changed? What's interesting, and I was just talking to Jason about this earlier, and the thought occurred to me, and that, you know, we had this cultural shift on Earth that I was part of. This thing called the seduction community that arose 20 years ago. And it had a much bigger impact on the culture around the world than we think, because it was hidden and nobody admits it. But I was on a conference call with some crypto wizard guys and entrepreneurs and Silicon Valley type guys. And they said, yeah, in my college days, I was all over it. So, and I'd go to Warsaw back in the day, and 300 guys in the audience that don't speak a word of English. They wanted to be part of it too. There's like it's a bigger thing, and why? Why did this come upon the earth? Because Well, there's lots of things we can say. I mean, we had this 100 years of a feminist equality movement. The idea and what was equality. It was called equality, and that was the goal, equality. And all these years later, we don't have equality. We have sameness. It's blended together. And I've been preaching about polarity for 20 years and talking about how the feminine grace is missing and we're starved for it. And the masculine grace is missing and we're starved for it.
Mhm.
You know, masculinity is not toxic, it's absent. And the true feminine grace in its power is an equal thing. It's just, it's polarity though. It's not the same thing. And what's interesting when I was talking to Jason about, because that pickup artist movement blanketed the earth, and it was a big cultural phenomenon that affected an entire generation. And what happened was, guys realized that it didn't work. You know, I didn't get my supermodel in bed in 3 easy moves. You know, and I didn't get that, and so there's an anger in the men. But more than that, what's interesting, what I see 20 years later, is a loss of hope, because the seduction community, the pickup artist movement, gave men some exuberant thing. I can follow an algorithm. I can get a girl in bed, and I can seduce girls, and I can do this if I follow the algorithm. And gave this blanket of men this profound hope, and there was a lot of excitement and exuberance, and there's layers in every city, if you recall.
Yeah.
And everybody came together, and they're celebrating because finally have an answer for men. But the answer was misguided. It was manipulation and went down this wrong path, right? It was, and it didn't work. And so now it's disappeared, and there's a lack of hope in the hearts of young men. And that's why we have things like this new word incel, because there's no hope for the men. So the message that I've been trying to say, and what you guys are trying to say, is that there is hope, and there is a way forward, and there is and masculinity is beautiful and needed and necessary, and feminine grace is beautiful and needed and necessary. So that's my long-winded answer.
A woman.
A woman. I like how many use that. I'll credit you. Don't worry.
It was used in the U.S. Congress, I think, late last year, like in December.
Yes.
Actually, someone said amen, and then someone said a woman, a woman.
That's
And they
cool.
actually meant it. And I've just never forgotten that. And it was a news cycle for a couple of days, but I love that. Every time Michael Foster calls him, I'm like, hey, woman, brother, how you doing?
That's
Kills
hilarious.
him. Jennifer, let's move on to you.
Okay.
Based on what Zan just said, masculinity is beautiful. That's not a term, that's not a statement you often hear almost anywhere, even
No.
in the manosphere.
No, I don't think I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
Like
How do you
that?
feel about that? Is masculinity beautiful to you? You're married. Is your husband's masculinity beautiful to you? Is it?
No,
Is that how
but
you feel?
I wouldn't call it beautiful, but it is. I think men are so awesome. I've always had admiration for men. They just move and operate differently than women. Even their like hanging out is just like different than than women. And women are like more bondy, and we talk, and I love that. I mean, because I'm a woman and that's how I communicate. But I like to watch men operate in the world, and I think women appreciate men, but they have been told that they're not supposed to because they can do it too. But I can open a jar, but my husband does it better. I can protect myself from an intruder, but my husband is more equipped. He has a natural ability that I don't possess. Yes, I could go and learn how to do that thing, but I'm not made for that, and I don't want to be that. So I appreciate what the opposite sex, what a good man, what they provide to society. I wouldn't call it beautiful, but it's not because it's not. I would choose an equally wonderful adjective, but I wouldn't say beautiful, but needed and
You mentioned early on in the statement an admiration for men. And your own view as a woman, do you feel that admiration for men is central to being a woman, to femininity?
Yes, I think I do. And once you admire and you can see someone for what they were built for, and they're doing it, and they're doing a good job of it, you easily slide into what your role is. I have found more, I have settled than, I mean, I'm 44, so it took quite a long time to find my natural habitat where I really feel more like myself. And I only do that, I am only that because I am the opposite and I work with my husband. But it's without him, he completes me. But really he does. You know, I get to be comfortable and safe and do the things that he's not wanting to do, or not, it's not his role. Yeah, I hate when I'm not articulate, and this is that moment right now.
You get to embrace being a woman.
Yes.
You're doing great.
Yeah. AJ, I want to move to you.
Mhm.
I think you'll have a good insight on this. You have been observing and involved with and tweeting and provoking the manosphere for several years, much like myself, in your own unique way. But in particular on Twitter, right? In the past couple of years, we've seen a lot of women get more involved in the manosphere. I think on the panel earlier today, there was someone talking about that. I'm not sure which speaker it was. So it used to be almost zero involvement of women in the manosphere, and there's a lot more of that these days. From a content creator perspective, and then even from like a common manospherian type perspective, if you want to call it that. What do you make of that, and where do you see that going? Is that the invasion of women in the manosphere? Is it a useful thing? Is it kind of a mixture of both? What are your thoughts on that?
I would frame it this way. So I'm telling Zahn this and Jennifer this before we started filming. So if we look at masculinity and femininity as two properties, they're the opposite of each other. If we could go use a yin yang kind of example. You have hardness, you have softness. Yeah, you have penetration, you have a womb. You have beauty, you have roughness. So like it's opposition. Like there's a contrast. And women always, whether they subconsciously acknowledge it or not, they take their cues from men. Even the stereotypes that we have today of like the boss queen, boss bitch, boss girl, it's essentially a woman trying to replicate being a man who's a leader, but she's doing an inferior job. A lot of the qualities that women have today that we often criticize were like they're bossy, they're brassy, they're disobedient, this antagonistic kind of attitude. It's a woman imitating playing a male asshole. But whereas a man can be an effective asshole and still be liked, women trying to be an effective asshole, you're just a bitch. Like no one actually likes you. Like it makes for a contentious life. But going back to that framing, so you have masculinity and femininity. And I noticed this is around 10 years ago. I was personal training, I was training women. And I remember hearing constant complaints from my female clients about just how hard dating was. And they can't find a man, capital M. There just doesn't seem to be that many men left. And at the same time, I was young, I was going out, and I was noticing just myself where there's not that many guys really approaching women. There was already that reticence, there was the betification of men, or like sexual marketplace was already becoming more split. And then I encountered the manosphere, years later, and I realized like, okay, like the kind of the seduction community, there was this segment of the men where they realized like, you know what, something's gone wrong. We need to maybe improve our skills in a misguided way, but like we need to improve ourselves. We need to improve ourselves. We need to be better equipped if we're going to have any success in the world. So you have the manosphere rise. It's male self-improvement. And then women at the same time, they've been hurting this whole time. Like women live in their own world. Like we'd like to think, this is very male-centric, right? Like we oftentimes think of women as just sort of evolving or revolving around us. They have their own sphere that they exist in that's separate from us. And women have their own sufferings, their own complaints, their own pains. But women, without men to guide them, they're not going to take any cue. There was no female self-improvement sphere. But then finally you start having the manosphere grow, and girls see this, young women see this, are like, oh, like guys, like men have realized that something's gone wrong. So it's not just me, I'm not just crazy. And they start forming their kind of own community. And it's going through its own evolution right now of whatever you want to call it. Girls trying to be traditional or trying to be feminine or femme, trad, con, whatever.
Trad wives.
Yeah, and it's going to be silly, and it's going to go through various permutations, and there'll be things to make fun of. But overall, I think it's a positive thing. For all the guys, especially the manosphere, who always bitch constantly about there's no good girls left. I always make jokes about this. Where like you have to go to the good girl church where the good girls are. which doesn't actually exist. But anyway, so all the guys who complain that like they can't find good women in quotes, well, you know what? There are good women, and they've come together. So you can probably talk to them. Maybe you'll find a wife, and then you can increase the fuck rate.
Yeah. I really like this.
We need to emphasize this. Okay, y'all are gonna remember this. You need to increase the fuck rate. How are you going to save the West if you're not fucking and reproducing? Really? Now, how are you going to do that? All this bitching constantly. I've heard this for years from guys. I'm black-pilled. Oh God, we're on decline. I just keep fucking consuming negativity. Okay, how do you change the world effectively? You fucking become a man. You become a leader. You have a woman follow you, and you have children. And you reproduce and you teach what you want to see in the world. You're not going to fucking do that bitching about how you can't get laid and it's not even worth getting laid because there's no good girls left. Go fuck yourself.
Increase the fuck rate. Go
Increase
fuck
the fuck
yourself.
rate. That's the part. You need to stop fucking yourself and go actually fuck a woman.
There we go.
A woman. I love this last point though, and I've talked about this at the convention a little bit as well. That in the manosphere forever, there's been almost forever anyway, bitching and moaning about no good women. There's no good woman here, no good woman left.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing like black pill, and yeah, if that. There might be some truth to that, right? That's not a complaint out of nowhere, but it's like if you're not going to fucking do anything about it, you don't have a lot of room to bitch. If what you're saying is true, if you believe it, and if that's accurate to reality, you can't fucking do nothing about it. This is why I make women great again, right? That's why you make some tweets sometimes that inspire women to do a little better, even if they get butthurt in the meantime. It's necessary. You can't have great women without mansplaining, without men teaching them how to be great women. It's at least one of the main necessary components for women to be great, to be good women. And yeah, if you can't, I'm not going to do anything about it. Action. You're very much about action, Jeff.
Yes.
Men have to take action, and that starts at least with speaking. At least the women have an alternative option of what to do.
You have to at least be able to tell the truth to women.
Yeah.
If you don't have the balls to tell them the truth, then you're not going to have any success at all. One of the reasons I think we're seeing more women show up to these events is, it's a phenomenon that I've noted many times. In a crisis, apartment building catches on fire or a train gets stopped in the subway and the lights go out, whatever. The most rabid lesbian feminist starts twisting her pigtails and becomes a traditional woman to be saved. Okay? Suddenly they deserve all the protection that men have. They're not the ones picking up the slack. I think a lot of women perceive a society in crisis and are rethinking where they want to be in that crisis, right? And part of that is perception, part of it's reality. One of the interesting things about female hypergamy is that the more successful that a woman gets, the smaller her mating pool. The more successful a man gets, the much larger his mating pool. So we have an asymmetry, right? And as women have become more and more successful in our society, largely due to laws and other things that advantage them, they become more and more successful. They can't marry up. They can't find men to marry up. And women marry up and men marry down. So they perceive a crisis and they go looking for a way to solve it in a very instinctive way, which is to get men to solve their problem, which is what women generally do and require. And we're only too happy to oblige by returning us to patriarchy.
Yeah. Restoring the patriarchy, one man at a time, one house
One man at a time.
What's interesting is I've been doing coaching and programs for many years for men, and women always say to me, do you do this for women too? Do you attract for women or this kind of thing? And no, I don't, because number one, it's not my place. But number two, you don't need to coach the women. That's my take. You need to coach the men.
That's right.
And then because the women will reflect the men of the society. So you concentrate on the men, and there's a reflection going to happen. And that's why we have this discord right now, because men are not men today, and they don't have any. There's nothing for women to grab onto. There's no gravitas in modern men. So they're playing both roles. I'm gonna be the feminine part and the masculine part, because where's the men?
Yeah.
And the men are saying, like you said earlier, men are saying, where's the women? And we give up. We're not having sex anymore. We're not going into this world. And women are concentrating on the things on the fringes like this. So women today, true beauty is rare, but it exists in women. Women are are not beautiful, they're beautified nowadays
Right.
with, body renovations and all this kind of stuff, right? They're beautified.
Filters and stuff.
Yeah. And so we're starved for true feminine grace and we're starved for true masculine grace. And that's what I've been saying all this time.
One additional thing, because
Go ahead.
you brought up something interesting. So I watch feminist movies, so you don't have to. And I watched one called Tango, and it had an excellent conflict in it. In tango and other classical dances, men lead the fucking dance. There is no classical dance where women lead, period, right?
Mm.
And it's actually one of the hardest things when you go to a dance studio and say you want to learn how to do the salsa or something. The hardest thing is they have to have older women in the dance studio to tell the younger women that they can't lead the dance. And many of them walk out. They can't suborn themselves. So in this feminist movie Tango, this becomes the focus of a conflict between a feminist who loves a tango dancer who looks amazingly like you. And
He's a ballet guy.
yeah, he's a ballet guy. And she can't let herself be led by this man. And the compromise at the end of the movie, this metaphorical compromise becomes she lets him lead her, but she sings the music into his ear. And they come to a compromise sort of in that way, right?
Mm.
And it shows this feminist notion that the woman wants to control even the rhythms of the dance, right? Men have to just simply say, and I've had to tell many women this in dancing, you cannot lead. Your job is to be a moldable device, and if the dance goes well, all the credit will go to you. If it goes badly, it goes to me. Since I'm responsible, you have to do what I tell you to do, or we can't dance. But it's funny how in this simple physical act, you find that the disobedience of women, the inability of women to submit to a man, even on the simple thing, is so hard that women will walk out after paying for lessons.
Yeah. I've seen women walk out of the 22 convention, not this year, but last year and the year before. A couple women, not a lot, we're talking like 2 or 3 or maybe 4 last year. They got so irate, usually with Coach Greg Adams. Occasionally someone else would inspire a walkout. But he in particular is the champion of getting women to walk out. One woman I walked down the hallway and I caught her walking out and I was able to talk her back into going.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I got a little Zan Perrion in me, seduce these women. but some of them I couldn't save. They just walk and I'm like, lost cause, hopeless, goodbye.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of disobedience. I want to shift gears a little bit to a concept I made, start a little debate on the panel here.
Okay.
So, and it revolves around the issues of accountability and responsibility. Do women have agency? Do they have accountability? Is it just, I think Zan hit the nail on the head that there's a reciprocal relationship between men and women in our culture right now. That sounds like common sense, but sincerely, men are mostly a bunch of beta losers at this point, and women then are a bunch of degenerate skanks. And this behavior is shifted, like AJ said, into the bell curve. There's a huge chunk of women that are nothing, that are a fraction of the quality woman that their grandmother and great grandmother was.
Yes.
Their great grandmother could cook a huge dinner. They can't even boil an egg, literally. So my question to the panel is, it revolves around slut makers and a self-made slut. A self-made slut, like a self-made millionaire, it's a concept I created in 2021. Because I had certain tradcons, traditional conservatives, they like to accuse, men and pickup artists universally, not in like a specified case, of being slut makers and this kind of thing. And I get on a surface level why they would say this, right? You go out, you have sex with 150 women, you're a slut maker. In my own experience of women in the dating marketplace, a lot of the girls that I ended up hooking up with in Orlando and around Florida, these girls had notch counts 30, 40, 50 deep. And I was number, 37. So it's like, if this girl by conventional standards is a promiscuous, loose woman, how am I responsible for that? Am I a slut maker if this girl already had sex with 37 men? Which one of those men made her a slut? Maybe one guy broke her heart, but really the common denominator is her. Maybe her father was obviously failed her and her mother, but so I guess the question of the panel is, are sluts self-made or are men slut makers? What is the relationship between these two things and women's agency and responsibility for their own life in our current climate, our current environment? Open to the panel.
I think they're both. I mean, we